you, Miss Eclipsey?
The world, the world, where are we?
I was
Nothing.
laughing, by the way. I thought I must have the most unprofessional Bitcoin podcast on the circuit. I managed to smash a thing of like, I distill my water, so I had this container and managed to smash it like right before we were supposed to have the call. So I had glass all over the floor. I was trying to mop it up. Then I was like, I should really try and put some makeup on. And I was like, I haven't eaten. I should eat something. So I'm sat here eating chocolate, sweaty, with hardly any makeup on. But then when you were like, oh, I'll be on in 15 minutes, I thought, oh, okay, I might just design myself a little podcast background. I've never done that before, so I'll just take one of my slides.
Hi, I know I was today, like also, I think the energy is kind of still there. And but overall, it's about surrendering and just try to find out where is the order of things. So we're really going to speak about the order, logos, like how to
Yeah.
go back to
You
basics.
might want to tilt your camera a little bit because you're quite low on the screen, if that makes sense.
Better?
Yeah, so that you're a bit more central or a bit
Yeah,
like your head's a bit higher up. Because then otherwise, when the captions are in, they'll be across your face.
because I'm a dwarf. I like to slouch a little bit. So yeah.
No slouching.
I love
So,
the
gosh, I
are you
mean, it's funny. This is quite funny because there's a whole convergence, I think, for you because you're so into astrology. And I have another friend who's an astrologer as well. And she's been talking about these eclipses this month since I can't remember when. And then obviously it's been a crazy month. So then when I was reading your article, I was like, oh, Monica's going to have a field day. But that comment you made about borders and immigration, I guess, for want of a better word, I thought was so interesting because I've often pondered this myself. Um, and I'll give you the context of why I pondered it is because nations are fictitious things, they're just an idea. And animals cross borders all the time and they don't have passports, they don't have paperwork. And this concept of bureaucracy that we have as humans is so beyond bizarre because no other creature on earth does this. Like, no other creature on earth issues passports or documents. And obviously, now we're having this big conversation about digital ID and CBDCs and everything else. And it's really fascinating to me on many levels because I just think, why does the human beast do this? And what's the purpose and what is actually driving it? So I don't know if that's where you're leaning into, but yeah, I just, when you put that post up, I just thought I have to talk to her about this because I've thought about this so much in the past. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. So I guess actually with that, we should just hand over to you. Why don't you just introduce yourself as though you need an introduction?
Yeah, okay. So I'm Monica Bravo. I'm in Miami Beach right now. It's the middle of the night. No, it's the evening, early evening, and a very nice end of September evening. And I'm an artist, multidisciplinary artist, also polymath. We did a podcast about what does that mean. And I've been studying very steady since 2020. I started with Bitcoin, then I went into Austrian economics. Then obviously, because I'm always very curious about stuff, I always want to know the origin of things. So when I started doing the Austrian economics, it's like, where did Mises get this thing about human action? And then boom, you go back to Aristotle and go, oh my God, I have to start reading the Greeks again, like not reading them like in school where you just read it like that, but you actually really read and understand what he's saying and why those concepts are so important right now. But then when you go there, you start seeing how things have been evolving, and then you go flash to now, and I watched the whole Charlie Kirk thing yesterday, and then you see I understand why these people are speaking like that right now. So we're gonna go really
Mm,
deep into it, and then I'm gonna try to build a lot of stuff that is actually, because how should I put it? Like, I'm so curious about how things work. I'm an artist, and so I create stuff. And in the creation, sometimes I have to pick up like subjects that have nothing to do with art, but they really make me very curious. And in that, like pattern recognition, I find like so interesting things how society is really working. Also, because artists, we look at society and we kind of get ideas. So if you
mhm.
look at society right now, you go like, what the F? Like, I mean, really, what's going on? And this duality and people bickering and people hating each other, and the division is so strong. And I want to understand, not if I have a way to try to convince you otherwise, but can I have a space where we can create a dialogue? A little bit
Mm.
what Charlie Kirk was doing. I was super, super inspired by him. It's been a couple of years that I follow him. And I have to say, because of the way he was being so eloquent, I decided you can only win an argument, or not win, but you can actually establish a very good conversation if you're eloquent about your ideas. But how can you get that eloquence? You have to study, you have to educate yourself. You cannot just give opinions. And this is very important because we are living in a world full of opinions. Everybody has an opinion about things. And people come with not only opinions, but they create this, I don't know, I'm not saying that all conspiracy theories are crazy, but some of them are just, they go over the top. So I like to go back to like the basics and see, okay, let's go to the principles, first principles, and see how can we build. And that's where I am right now. I'm reading this incredible rabbit hole that started with Bitcoin. What is money? What is Austrian economics? Why do we say the Austrian economics is what we need in order to rebuild civilization? So if we're going to rebuild the civilization, what are we going to bring forward? And because the astrology also, I have to put it there, we're really at the end of a very big cycle. It's a huge cycle. And 2020 is going to be like reset.
You can feel it. Yeah, you can feel it. I have a question for you that's maybe zooming out a little bit. Why should we rebuild civilization? Why have it at all?
How do you want to live voluntarily in collaboration? You want to kill each other? Because civilization means that you are, the word civilization means that you are actually able to lead a life that is people respecting property rights, respecting the property of the bodies, like not violating each other. That's what civilization is.
But what's the objective at the end of the day? I mean, would you say that animals are civilized? They're not, but they survive and they get their needs met and they go through their cycle. So why should we? Why should we? Why
The
not
thing is
just
that
be animals?
we're not animals because we have the thought process, we have the logic, we have the logos. They don't. They're very instinctive, which is great. We should become more like animals in the way that we have to listen more to our instincts and see when we're in danger and like follow our body instead of following like a doctor telling us what vaccines or what not, what to take. So in that sense, man should follow more the animal kingdom and sense of smell, sense of sight, sense of taste, sense of like, touch and see, am I in danger? Yeah, maybe I should get out of here. As opposed to like, no, let me have a meeting with all these people, call all my friends to see if I should take the vaccine or not. I mean, is that stupid or what? So in that sense, the ability that we have as species to think has been used in detrimental ways in the last whatever 100.
Manipulated.
Yeah, because we don't know how to use this powerful tool. This is not supposed to make our decisions. And this is interesting because I had to change a little bit that way of thinking because I come from the place that it's about my intuition, it's about my instinct, but then you meet Ludwig von Mises that says that man acts, and praxeology is the practice of becoming logical. Now, I have become a very logical person in terms of these kind of matters, whether it's politics or whether it's economics or Bitcoin. I have to be rational. Because if you're not rational, you're not making the right decisions and you're probably not keeping your seed phrase in the right place. And then you're like, oh, I was not thinking about it. So thought process is very important. Now, my question always is how much should I know about these things? So when I have to make a decision now, because I have a problematic in front of me, who's going to decide? The logical or the illogical? The emotional that like reacts and not responds. So we see a lot of people right now, especially in the left. I hate dividing people like that, but in the left, everybody's talking about their feelings. I don't feel that that's fair. And it's like, that's not logical because people want to be treated in a way that's really manipulation. That's really manipulation. And I really love to talk about feelings, but more like from the self-empower. Like I am responsible for behaving in a way or another. And this goes again to purposeful behavior in human action.
Yeah, I mean, I think acknowledging how you feel is great. Making other people responsible for how you feel or requiring that they take some action to make you feel a certain way is kind of silly. Yeah.
Triggered, because right now it's a favorite word. Our word triggers. Like, yeah, I get triggered big time. But what I do with my triggers, I go inside of myself, I sit down and I said, so what's happening? Well, I got triggered. Okay. And so I start having a conversation, I do my somatic work, or sometimes if the problem is too very big or the trigger is something I cannot deal with, I'll bring it to my psychologist that I work with every month. And I go like, I've been really triggered by this. And so we go deep. And so I can evolve, but I cannot impose you to behave towards me in a way because I'm triggered because you just called me something that I don't want you to call me. This is the most irresponsible things. And what's happening in the next years to come, and this is very interesting historically with astrology, every 36 years, there's kind of like a reset in society. So 36 years ago was the Berlin Wall, tuk, 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 coming now. So we have Saturn and Neptune together. Neptune is all about dissolving, endings. And Saturn is all about structures. So every 36 years, some structures in society, they collapse and they begin. If you go before that, 1953, in the middle of the 50s, you have China collapsing to Mao. We have Stalin dying. Then go backwards. And it's interesting because historically, for the last, whatever, 200 years, we have Russia being part of this story. Right now, Russia is in the story as well. And then before that, we have 1917, when, the Soviet Union started, doing
First
whatever
World
they.
War, Soviet Union, yeah, all of it.
Yeah. And so when we see these cycles, it's very interesting because you say it's not that this is going to happen, but in a way, we're all electromagnetic beings. We're all vibrating in an energy, and we all are in tune with certain energy, whether we're in tune with ourselves or we're in tune with the collective. So for instance, my premise is this, is like, I don't know if you read the last article that I was talking about, the pursuit of happiness. And it's interesting because Aristotle speaks about the pursuit of happiness, and that's why the founders of this country use it in the Constitution, in the Declaration of Independence. They said, this is what we aim. This is our aim is to be happy, to respect each other, and to live free. We want liberty. We don't want to be judged. We don't want to be like, I don't know, living in a society where we're actually like animals. And they moved over here thinking, and they founded the country based on like very old texts. So you go back to Aristotle, you go to Cicero, you go to Virgil, you go to Aquinas, like, oh my God, like you go back to.
I actually watched yesterday that clip of, well, I saw a shorter clip of it a couple of days before, but that clip where somebody asked about Charlie Kirk if America was a Christian country, like was it founded on Christian principles? Have you seen that clip?
Probably I've seen so
Oh
many
my
of them.
God. I mean, it's insane. It's so worth it. He is so well read, or was so well
Yeah,
read. It's
yeah.
breathtaking. He literally goes through all of the states and like what their constitution kind of setup was. He goes through the constitution, explain, I mean, and like no notes, just boom, 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 like that. And I was like, wow.
It's amazing, and like I look up to him. Like when he died, I was so devastated because I looked up to him. I mean, he's 30, I'm 30 years his senior. I was devastated. I was like, this man is a prodigy. And the interesting thing is like 18 months ago, I started studying in a place called the Hillsdale College online.
Oh,
Free.
yes, I know that. Yeah, yeah.
He donate because you do that, but that's where he learned. Then like a year ago, I enrolled because of Saifedean, and he said, you want to join the Tom Woods. He's an
Hmm.
Austrian. He has something called the Liberty Classroom.
Hmm.
Uh, wow, these are all online courses that are so affordable that's where that's where he learned what he knows. And I've been going down this rabbit hole as well because for a year now, let's put it this way, I'm going to say it in a way that is kind of very open. It's like, I want to make sure that my rights are protected in this country and I don't fall into any impositions, especially with money, because all this legalese is telling me that in order for me to be free, I have to get permits, I have to use papers to cross the border, I have to pay from my time for them. I'm not going to use the word, but I think you know what I'm talking about. The thing is that I want to like dox myself completely, but I have learned all this language, so I actually do not comply with this unlawful. These laws are unlawful, but they're legal.
Yeah, so I
So
think that's a distinction actually that a lot of people don't understand. And I had a conversation with somebody about something that was related to health, but they said to me, "Oh, no, 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 I could never not do that. I'm a rule follower." And I was kind of like, what you're following is legal, but it's actually unlawful.
lawful.
Yeah, and so I think most people don't understand that distinction, and I think it's by design. So can you just expand on that of like how you understand that?
Well, it's a whole rabbit hole. Basically, you have to understand that there are many different laws. And if you start with natural law, what is natural law? Natural law is like, it's not even written. It's like, it's the law that it's in accordance to nature. It's what protects your life. It secures any right that you have for your body, for your property, for your consent, for not being violated. Not just your body, but your property. This is it's very difficult for me to pronounce this word, but I have to try. Inalienable. I cannot put it I can't.
Inalienable, inalienable.
Thank you. Every time, not even in Spanish, I'm like, eh. So that word. So, and that's written in the Constitution. So these are rights that they cannot be taken away. That's what it means. These are rights that are yours. And this is a story I have that is very interesting. During the so-called pandemic, obviously I didn't get that poison in my body, and it was just a natural instinctive thing for me. It's like, I'm not going to let anybody tell me what to do. But I signed a contract with the city of Boston for my commissions, and these are one of the most woke people up there, right? And so I'm about to go and install the big projects, a big project, 2 years in the making. This is 2022. People were ready with the third booster, whatever. And I'm sent a letter that if I want to go into the premise, I have to still use a mask. And I'm like, you gotta kidding me. I haven't used a mask for even one day for that. So I wrote and I said, I'm not going. Like, and then they said, no, you have to come, the contract. And I said, yeah, but in my contract, it's not written that I have to wear like this thing on my face. And so I noticed that this was going to be a problem. So I had been following some groups on Telegram, people who didn't want to fake the vaccine card, people who don't, and because I was not threatened by any form to get it, I didn't have to do anything about it. But I knew that if I ever enter into that problematic, I would know where to go. So I go to the back to the group and I'm like, guys, what is the letter that I have to write? And so they gave me just a pro forma letter. Basically, it says that above all, there is God.
Oh, is that
In
what the
between,
letter said? I love
no,
it.
no, I'm like, and they're like, this is the letter. I'm like, guys, come on. And we're not kidding. So it's like above God, all is God. And after God is your rights. And after that, then all other laws. So under natural law, you cannot impose anything in the property of my body.
Mm.
And when you send that letter, this is the interesting thing. When you send these letters to people, they never respond, yes, you're right. They always say, we're going to make an exception.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They can accept. So they know that I know that they know that they're at fault, right? And so this was interesting because I thought, oh my God, this is so powerful. I felt that day on the plane. And when I got there, I was like the superwoman. I was like, this is all grammar. This is syntax. This is language. How powerful. This is Bitcoin. This is like, if you know what it means, you have all the power. But some people don't know it. So I said to myself, okay, when I have time, I'll get into this. And so I started last year. So I wanted to see how you can get out of the system. You can get out of a lot of systems here in the United States. Taxes, property taxes, like not driving with a driver license. It uses different kind of ID. So when you go through borders, you're not like, your life doesn't belong to them. Because this is the thing. When you get a social security or you're born in this country, you're basically giving away all your rights. But you don't know that. They just
Yeah,
want to
you're
be,
you're basically like signing a contract to be kind of, I guess, indentured labor, really.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then they own you. You're a slave. Remember, we're debt slaves. This is the moment with all this became like pretty much at the same time, like the Constitution of the United States was changed in 1871, I think. And then they have all these bankers kind of like colluding to see what they're going to do, oh, let's do like the Bank of England, blah, blah, blah. And then, 1910 11, 12, 13, boom, we're going to have the Federal Reserve. And then immediately they have the IRS, which just was not called like that. That was the taxes. And then, oops,
Isn't it?
the
Can I
war.
just say something that's so funny though? Is like when you start studying Bitcoin and you really start going down all these rabbit holes and thinking from first principles, it becomes astounding that we just are in this system and everybody accepts it. Like I had a really fascinating conversation over dinner with this guy last year. It was like March last year. And he was talking about exactly this. He had actually written to, I think it was the IRS, and basically said, I am not, I'm a, what did he say? I think it was, there was, again, to your point, it was something to do with language. I'm an American national. I'm not an American citizen or something. So he was
Yeah,
basically opting out and saying, you don't have jurisdiction over me. Like I was
yes,
born in this territory and I have a right to be here, but you don't have jurisdiction over me as a subject.
yes, study common law. And that's what I'm studying. And the interesting thing is all language. So you write, basically, this is what happens in the taxes here. And I'm going to tell you, and people should understand this because people are paying taxes because they're afraid. And so, hold on, no. I have to get this one. Yeah, no. So, sorry. So this is one thing that I would like to say. Every year you sign a voluntary contract with the government where you comply that you're going to pay what you think you owe. Because that's what happens here. I don't know how it is in Australia, whatever, but here you just kind of say, I received this amount, I have these deductions, send the papers, and then if you have a good accountant, he or she's gonna try to make it so you pay the least.
Hmm.
So other loopholes, like rich people don't pay taxes because they kind of like buy other businesses and stuff. So the whole point, and this is something I learned very early on when I moved to the States. I was working for a photographer, an artist, and I was doing just artistic stuff. And then one day she said, you should go to the accountant with me. And I was like, oh. And then she says, I'm going to teach you the most important thing for you, how to do your taxes. And I was like bored and I said, okay, I'm going to go. And I learned. And what I learned those days that I went there is like, how it's not how to cheat. It's like, what can you say that you spend the money with so you have the most amount of deduction? So I was like, isn't it funny? You basically lie
Hmm.
and you might be called to for an audit and then you have to kind of supply the thing. And I have friends that just say, well, I kind of give a ball number and then pray. It's like it's a lottery every year. It's a lottery. So I always think
It's also, there was a really funny meme I saw where it was like, the IRS is like, hey, you have to pay your taxes, so tell me what you owe. And then the person says, well, why don't you just tell me what I owe? And then that's what I pay. No, you have to figure it out. And then if you get it wrong, we're going to put you in prison. That's literally like what it's like.
because you sign that. So every year you have to sign a paper that if you're not going to pay, you're going to pay later. If you're not going to file, so if you sign that, that's when they get you because you're compliant. You're making a contract with them. So what I learned in all these classes was that first of all, you have to learn the language. Of course, I'm scared about it. Especially, people should be scared when they don't know what they're doing. Of course, be scared because you cannot just. It's not like a roll of dice. It's like, oh, maybe I'm lucky. This is no luck. There's no luck. I don't believe in luck. I believe in good and bad decisions. So if you're going to make a good decision, make sure that you understand what you're doing because this is something that nobody can do for you. You cannot hire a lawyer or have your assistant doing that for you. So I'm doing like a university online where basically she's really funny. She's on X and she's really tough. And at times I go like, oh my God, she's so tough. And then I go, I know why she's so tough because she's really teaching us to be accountable.
Hmm.
Like, you gotta be tough. You have to have a thick skin, things as small as like opting out of the bio optometry at the
Hmm.
airport. I love it because I'm like, I don't fight. I basically give my information. I said, hey, how are you, officer, whatever the name. I said, how are you doing, sir or madam, whatever. Very polite. And they say, good. And I said, well, I immediately give my password and I say, I prefer you to look at this. And they say always yes. I don't say like, I'm not going to do this because this is bullshit, whatever. You don't do that. You just come
Yeah.
with the authority and you say, this is my preference because this is what everything is voluntary. So if I say, I want this instead of this, That's where you're exercising your rights.
It
But
was
you have
funny
to.
you say that, but it's funny actually. I was at San Francisco Airport in 2009, and myself and this German lady were there, and they wanted to do the going through the scanners, and I was like, I don't want to go through the scanner, like the the radiation scanners. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to do that. She's like, yeah, I don't want to do that. And there was a big sign saying, if you don't want to go through the scanners, just let us know. You can opt out. So we're like, okay, you can opt out. So both of us were like, yeah, we'd rather just have a pat down. I mean, it was just so ridiculous. Like it was farcical. They got, those little like barriers that you put that you
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the pull the elastic thing and put it in. So they kettled us in one of those, but it was literally like they penned us in the middle of the thing. So in a really small little like box, the two of us. So we were almost like on show to everyone. There's the naughty people in the corner. And then this fat woman comes waddling out. She's like, why did you two refuse to go through the scanner? Like it was literally like that. And we're like, and we both point to the sign and we're like, but it says you can opt out. And she was furious because, like, now somebody's going to come and pat you down. And I just thought, this is like absolutely ridiculous. Like, what is wrong with people in San Francisco? Like, I'm just trying to fly home to the UK and, like, seriously, you're that upset because I won't go and radiate myself.
Thing is, this is they're meant to. First, some of these people don't know what is right,
Well, I think
and
it's
some.
also the TSA training that they get because they don't want everybody to do that because then they have to pat everybody down. So they're told, I've read this afterwards that they're told to make your life difficult. So you go, oh, okay,
They
I'll
make
just,
always tell me because I don't get pat down. Oh, you're gonna. They say, well, it's gonna take some time. I'm well, good. That's why I come here like 5 hours before. I mean, I always make a joke. And I say, I have all the time in the world. I don't mind missing my flight, but I prefer to be masturbated by you. Like I make jokes and people like like that, and then and always funny and always
awkward. And then they're like,
so. But it's funny because I know that I want them to know that I know what my rights are without being violent. And this is one thing that I think that I've been learning, that eloquence gives you the capacity for you to have an argument without having to shoot the other person.
I don't think of it as an argument that it's setting boundaries, isn't it? Saying, look, I get it. We all get that this is a farcical, stupid thing and you have to play your role. But I'm just saying that, like, I know that I don't have to kind of submit to this. So
But the
just let,
interesting thing is this is like if you go no, no, yes, no, you're playing that game because it's not
mm,
about. So it's more like you come in a very assertive way and you say, I prefer this.
mm,
And they go, it's okay. Big smile. And so you assert yourself that this is your preference and this is your will and these
mm-hmm,
are your rights. And these are rights that nobody can take away from you. So you're not going to argue with them. You're going to
mm-hmm.
say, I'm going to do this. And I think it was in Dallas last year. I had somebody, it was very funny because I paid this like TSA, whatever, like to get before. So these people are
Pre-check, yeah.
pre-check. So these people are trained, but these pre-checks are companies that are private. People don't know this is
Oh,
private.
yeah, yeah.
This is interesting because when you're dealing with the private, they're acting like they're not private and they're governmental. And this is where you have to know, like, wait, so I tell to one person, I don't want to do the eyes. They still can do the finger, whatever. At some point, it's like, okay, I don't want to do the 200-hour line. I, I, I'm going to commit. So I said, no eyes, just like, and they go, oh, she says, you have to start getting used to it because we're going to change the machines. And I said, all right, we'll deal with that then. And she goes, no, I'm going to ask you to do it now because, I'm challenging her. And I said, according to whom? And she says, to me. And I said, so you're telling me that you have authority over me? And she said, yes. And I said, I think that you're wrong. And I said, I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to walk directly to the agent, the guy who actually, immigration lawyer, that is not this person. And she came running after me and she said, she shouldn't do this. She didn't want to do that. And I turned around and I said, I think that we're fine with you. And I turned around and I said, I prefer to do this. And he engaged with me, but I didn't insult her or anything. I just let her know that I'm not going to play that game. Calm, like that. She just wanted to fight. She just wants to show me that she has the power.
Mm.
And I don't even know what you're talking about. And then I filed a complaint when, I got, I'm early. So I got into whatever the lounge and I'm like, oh, let's do this. And I filed a very big complaint saying that they shouldn't be doing those things because it's not in my rights. And so when you
Yeah.
start rights, it's interesting. But people are making a very big like mashed potatoes right now with immigration, and that's it's a very big subject because I
Mhm.
came to the United States 31 years ago, and I actually went through the process. And I went through the legal process. So the difference is this: it's like natural law are the laws that are coming from nature.
Mhm.
Then we have common law. That's what you have had in England for a long time and in the Commonwealth. So this law is more has to do with the memory of how people are dealing in community. And it was established with the Magna Carta, I think, in the 1200s
Yeah.
because they wanted to tell the kings, guys, we have to have like a jury, like you cannot be killing people. So it
I
was
mean, the
kind of
American
like,
Constitution is basically based on the UK, on the
yes,
UK.
we have bunch of those things. So the common laws there, and it's interesting because a lot of courts here, they're no longer practicing common law, and the people that I'm studying with are bringing it back. So
Hmm.
all things that I'm learning is just in case I get stopped, which I mean, I don't drive, but if I were to get stopped in a car and ask for my papers, and I don't have a driver's license, but I have one of those like no national whatever things, I will know how to respond to the police and saying, I don't know why you're asking me for this, but it's something that you learn. So I don't drive, so I don't have to do
So
that.
I have a question for you though about leaving aside the legalities of things. If we just look at like the practical kind of structure of society and how it operates, because I often think of like a nation state as obviously just a construct, it's an idea. But it has a practical purpose in the sense that a group of people have, in some shape or form, got together, maybe semi-dictatorially or through a monarchy or whatever it might be. But they've kind of agreed a set of cultural norms to live by and some kind of cohesive way through which they make decisions about how things are done. And this whole kind of thing, this concept of passports is interesting because, I mean, passports didn't used to exist. I mean, how many years ago, like 100, years ago, there was no such thing as a passport. So you would travel somewhere and you would arrive, and usually somebody that knew somebody there would give a letter saying, hey, this person's coming and they're not a weirdo. They're not going to rob and pillage your village or whatever, can you host them or whatever it might be. So there was much more kind of like a gentleman's agreement. And I kind of look at the whole passport thing, and I mean, the whole thing is just such bullshit. It's so bureaucratic. It's just a mess. Like during
No, but
lockdowns, it was ridiculous because people's visas were expiring and they couldn't travel. There was like just a hot mess. And I thought about animals, and I was like, animals cross borders all the time. They've no concept of America versus Canada versus Mexico. But what they do is they do establish a territory. So they do say, like they'll go and piss around a certain thing and say, this is my patch. And if you come in, I'll attack you. So that concept does exist in the animal kingdom, but it's just enforced through violence and it doesn't have bureaucratic papers. And so it kind of gets me a little bit thinking about some of this because on the one hand, I'm like, why the fuck should I have a passport? Like, fuck you, I can go where I want. But then on the other hand, in reality, that's not how
it's not
communities or
how,
societies work.
not anymore, because also, for instance, when the people came from England to here and they kind of like took over the land, they basically were homesteading. So that's another way to define property rights. Is like if you have put some of your labor onto the
Into a
land, then
piece of land.
yeah,
Mm.
but this is when you have open borders, which the United States was an open borders, not like now, but open
And
borders.
then you defend your homestead with guns and violence. So if somebody
Yeah,
comes and intrudes, you basically
that's why
retaliate. Yeah.
amendment is, you were free to come here, you were free to practice whatever religion or thing that you wanted, you free to say whatever you want, you were free to pick up the land and just work it, and then kind of like make a fence and then write a paper saying this is my property. But then when more people start coming, and it like this country immigration, I think it was very, very open until the half of the 1940s and 50s.
I think
Then,
earlier than that, because they did put restrictions in the early 1900s.
yes, they did, because they were kind of like way, like allowing certain people to arrive, like, all the Irish came, and then a lot of people from the Holocaust came. But then we're talking about, for instance, the immigration. This, I wrote something 2 days ago with the H1 visa. I mean, there's all these things. And I learned this not long ago when I was kind of looking at immigration. When I came here in the early 90s, I came with a visa that is called outstanding alien. And this is a visa where I have to show that I earned
It's funny, the
my,
name of it, so funny.
no, but
It's
it's
like,
true.
it's like, were you like a shimmery blue-skinned outstanding alien that turned up?
I know, I was, because it's called outstanding alien. I was like, well, I am not from another planet, but yeah, I can understand Colombia is a little bit off, but but that's the way it was called, outstanding or artistic, and it's given to athletes or people in the music industry or in the art world or something like that. So basically what you had to prove was that you were somebody who already had done some good, or show that you're good at what you do in the realm or the practice that you say that you're good. So how do you going to corroborate that? So there's going to be 10, 20 letters by people who have like renown, that they're going to talk about your merits. Then if you have win awards, something like that, then if you have press nowadays, if you have a lot of press, that also does. And then you're going to have like people in the field higher up that they really write a letter and they say, look, we can even sponsor this person. So if you're able to get that stuff, you can get in. Now, this law was established. I didn't know there was only 1990. It's with
Oh, wow.
yeah, and the HB1 was done at the same time for people who come to universities to study, and then after they leave the university, they spend so much money in these universities, they're gonna give them 1, 2, or 3 years to enroll in a company so they can prove that the studies that they've done, the money that they give into this country, is gonna make them, uh, get a good job. And I remember all that because when I was trying to think about immigrating here, I had already lived in Europe, but what I did is like I will move every 2 years without even thinking about legality. I was just like, I'm gonna live here, come and go, come and go, come and go. And then, people at the borders were like, you gonna stay here another year? And I was like, ooh, sounds a little bit fishy. I never thought I wanted to get a residence. I was like you thinking like, why should I get a residence? I can come and go. Like I was not thinking about laws or anything like that. But then I'm in my 30s and I really want to come to the States, and I thought I better do this the right way. Because in Europe it kind of worked for 8 years, because I mean it worked is because every 2 years I was moving and I was traveling every 3 months. It was schizophrenic. And then I wanted to get like a residency in Greece, but it was very difficult. Everywhere where I was, it was like not as, I don't say here was easy, but it was easier because here you hire a lawyer. He tells you, yes, you have everything that is needed. Okay, let's do it. And then so money talks. So you go, okay, how much? What? And so they tell you the fee and it's really a lot. And then you go to the lawyer and says, hey, do you have children? This is what I did. And I used to be a photographer, and that's how I became like with immigration with my photography, because I had worked a lot in Europe in magazines. Like I had a lot to show. And so, but he told me the price and I was like, wow, okay, I don't want to pay this amount. And then I said, oh, are these your children? He goes, yes. And I said, I really love children. And I said, they're so cute, but I have to tell you something, those photos are ugly. They're not good photos. He said, oh, you're good. And I'm like, I'm really good. And I said, why don't we do something? Why don't we trade part of it? And he said, yes, you're only going to pay the legal, like the fees that you need to pay. So I became friends with him. I sent him so many people, so many people, so many people, because I discovered that the kind of visa that I was getting was something that a lot of people didn't know. So I will help friends. So you can get this visa. You have to do this, this, and this, and that. And so it was interesting. So I was able to trade. And then immediately after I got my visa, like it was like 2 days after I got my visa, I went to his office to pick it up. And then he said he was going to give it to me. And then he took it apart. He goes, now you're ready for your green card? And I'm like, green card? No, I can wait. He goes, no, you don't wait. You do it right now. We're going to do the same process. And I said, oh, you're all about money. He goes, no, I need more pictures. And I'm like, okay. So we did that. And so because of him, he's really a great lawyer. Because of him, I got my passport in record time. because he said, now you do this, now you do that, now you do that. And he was very good at the system, and this system was new. So he knew how to do it. And that's how you got it. And many, many friends got that kind of visa. Now things are different, and I was very much against, and I voted for Donald Trump because I don't want an invasion here. I don't think that is sustainable economically for the United States, because this contributes to the debasement of the dollar. The government is printing so much money to feed these immigrants.
Mm.
And I got very big fights with other people because they think I'm not compassionate. It's like, it has nothing to do with compassion. I'm talking from the economical point of view. This is not sustainable. Plus, it's not okay. I was never giving, and I'm not jealous that they get money. I didn't. I was never given anything. I wanted to work, and I work through, I mean, even exchanging images.
I think I
you know,
noticed there's a lot of misunderstanding, or people just don't understand that when you, because the term migrant gets used as a catch-all, but there's a big difference between somebody that comes and works and pays taxes and sustains themselves and somebody that just rocks up. And then oftentimes they're not refugees either from like war-torn places. They're literally just economic migrants, but they're not going through the proper process, and they're being subsidized and given housing and things like that. And I mean, I think we see this so much in the UK where we've got, people homeless on the street, often veterans, which is extremely enraging. And then somebody just rocks up on a boat, comes across the channel illegally from France, and gets given a house, gets given a food, gets given an allowance. And then after, I think, 5 years or something, they can apply to stay permanently. I mean, it's clearly a controlled demolition from within. This is
oh,
not an accident, Because it's one thing
yeah,
people come in illegally. It's another like, oh, you're coming illegally, and now I'm going to give you all this stuff, and the taxpayer's going to fund it. It's like, what the fuck?
architecture and this is an architecture that has been in the works for the last 60 years. Didn't happen just like that. I
Mm,
recently wrote a post that says, let excellence define your right to emigrate. So you can contribute and serve the country you choose as your future home. It is something you earn by merit.
yeah, yeah.
Let it be a privilege for you to come to a country as a guest and
This is
accept.
this is always my issue about this, where people are like, oh, cultural sensitivities and this and that. And I think the problem is we always bump everything up to a macro level. But if you take it down to a micro level, if somebody comes and stays at your house and you extend them hospitality, and then they rock up and they start trashing your house, they abuse your family members, they steal from you, they just lay about all day eating chips and watching TV. Why is it that's not okay at a micro level in your home, but it's okay at a national level in your country? Like it doesn't make any sense to me.
Because I think that a lot of people, even the people who got the boosters and stuff, they've been programmed. Cool. I mean, the program is really working through the telly.
I'm sorry. It's just so funny how you're being a bit judgy, Monica. Like it's the people with the boosters.
I mean, I'm talking seriously right now. The people with the boosters, I mean, many of them, not to say the vax people, the people with the boosters, is like, because I've been reading stuff that is pretty scary about like how much not only they don't have an immune system that is working. So if your immune system is not working, your mind is not working, your decision making is not working. I don't want to be judgmental. I'm talking logical here. And these are the same people, unfortunately, that are going to this specific places, not to get educated, but to get schooled and indoctrinated. So they don't have common sense. They don't have their own freedom to choose because they don't know even how to be free. And this has been programmed for a long time, Chris. I'm sorry. And the UK, I always fight with my English friends because I say, you guys are so socialist, you don't even know. The whole program of UK, you guys are on the verge of communism. And you go, oh no, you're exaggerating. It's like, oh, maybe not.
I think
But
it's
it
interesting to me though that I see this a lot. Like there's a real um cultural schism now between like Eastern Europeans, people that come from Latin American countries that have been under socialism, and a lot of them have come to Western countries to embrace the kind of freedoms that they saw there. And I talk to so many of these people who are just like horrified because like, do you guys not see that you are literally going down the same path that we did? So you look at countries now like Poland, like Hungary. I mean, they're very
I'm
what what
very
what the wokerati would call right wing, but they're basically like, hey, we
wrong.
did that experiment and it was fucking horrible and we
It
ain't
was.
doing it again. And by the
Yeah.
way, this is the, and I mean, I grew up next to the Iron Curtain, so I didn't grow up in a communist country, but I was literally on the border of one and very, very aware as a child of like the people that lived over the other side were not having the same life that I was having. And it really stuns me how naive, I think, especially people in North America are because they've never seen it with their own eyes. You know, they haven't actually seen, for example, people that live behind the Iron Curtain, what their health looks like, what their teeth look like. Um, I mean, I remember going to Estonia as a kid, and the people that we were staying with hadn't, like, we took chocolate with us and coffee because they literally couldn't get chocolate and coffee where they lived.
Wow.
Like, they had none, these things were like high luxury. And I
That's
always remember my mum observing. I mean, I was quite little when we went over, but I remember her saying, "Oh, yeah, we had dinner at this people's house," and I think they had these like cans of Coca-Cola, and they were empty. They'd been drunk, but they were like decorations in the house because they were so prized. These cans of Coca-Cola. Like, can you imagine? You literally have Coca-Cola cans as like home decor,
wow.
because it's such a luxury. People just have no concept of that. Like, no
Yeah.
concept of that
They,
whatsoever.
no, they never had like to encounter that experience because it's an experience. When you experience things, you know. When you don't, you only read things or you watch TV, you don't know. You just like have an opinion. That's a bit. I'm always fighting with people who are like, I have an opinion. It's like, have you lived through that? No, it's like, I don't want your opinion. Like, who cares about your opinion? There's so many people like just throwing opinions. Like, what is an opinion? Opinion is very useful when you have something to criticize, and then you probably, hopefully, you have a way out of that. That's
Well, I
why
think I
opinion.
think when it's based on fact, I mean, you don't necessarily have to. Sorry, I was laughing because I'm thinking about Douglas Murray on that debate that he had with Dave Smith on Joe Rogan's show. Have you even been there? Like, I don't think you have to have necessarily have been there to have a view on something, but you have to be kind of cognizant that you might not know everything or you might not understand, or go and source opinion from somebody that has grown up there or has lived there, can talk to you about what it's like.
Somebody who talks about socialism with not having lived there or experienced it
Mm.
like you, that's an opinion. Have you been there? No. Do you know anybody from Cuba? Do you know anybody from Venezuela? Have you traveled to these countries? No? Okay, that's an opinion.
Yeah, yeah,
Because you read
yeah.
it and where the New York Times, triple opinion.
I mean, when somebody says to me that they read something in the New York Times now, my brain just hears, I am unable to think critically.
Yeah, that's why people who have opinions, I'm not saying you look, I actually embrace like people who have very good opinions, but these people that I know that they have good opinions, they have gone through a process of understanding what works and it doesn't work because opinions are very logical. You know, you don't have feelings and opinions at the same time. You either feel or you think. There's no such a thing as like the two at the same time. So
Hmm.
when you actually base it on something, like something that you see, something that you read, but you're well read about it, or you basically do a study, or you go like, I have not been there yet, but this is what I hear. Is that true, Chris? Is that true? And you say, yeah, and you go, oh my God, I have this friend that told me this. So this, it's not an opinion. You're already speaking from the place that you have the experience of talking to people from there.
Yeah, I'd
Or
agree, but I think it's also like understanding that you have certain knowledge, and if new knowledge comes along, you need to be able to change your view. It can't just be set in stone because, you know, you vote a certain way or you dress a certain way or you identify a certain way. Like if new information comes to light, I mean, I
I
don't know.
think
For example, I had a colleague that was from Russia, and she said people criticized the Soviet Union the whole time, but she said, you know, when I was a kid, she grew up in Siberia, and she's like, we had everybody had health care, you know, we had like a very stable society, and she's like, it was actually kind of great. Like now I earn a lot more money and I've got whatever, but it all feels much more chaotic. And she's like, it wasn't this kind of dreary kind of gulag that people describe. And I mean, that was her experience, but it was interesting hearing her talk about it, you know?
100%. And you have to change, like one of the latest opinions that I've changed or views rather than opinions is Millet.
It's
Have
evolved. Your opinion has evolved.
and because I was like, and I told this in class the other day, I said it was probably my wishful thinking that somebody from South America is going to make the economy of one of the most like crazy countries. Like it's actually going to work with this, you know, Austrian economics, but then things are not adding up. uh,
Mm.
they're not adding up. So I ask in class all the time, so how do you measure those things? And now that I'm asking and I'm shown, I'm like, wow. And I'm the first one to accept and go, wow, I went 180 completely because it was my wishful thinking. Oh, let's hope that this works. But if the guy didn't close the central bank from day one, and he's been printing money here and there and making believe that everything is really working when it's not, and he's going to come tomorrow to the United States to get money from here to keep on printing. So basically, he failed. And my heart breaks because I was so hopeful. But then
Yeah, I
again,
mean, I think when the first thing he did when he got elected into office, when he had Elon Musk meetings with Elon Musk and with Bill Clinton of all people, I thought this doesn't look good. But I remember very early on, like Seifedine put out a tweet basically breaking down how his whole economic policy was bullshit. And Seifedine is so disagreeable that when he says something, I just think he's knowledgeable about economics and he really does not give a shit about being liked. And so he just says what he thinks without any kind of consideration of like whether people are going to receive it well or not. So when I read his thread, I mean, this was probably like 8 months ago, 10 months ago, something like that. And I was like, oh, okay. And look, I mean, I didn't delve into it deeply, but when I read that, I'm like, if he's saying that with his knowledge and somebody that doesn't care whether people like him or not, I tend to kind of take that as fairly
2 days ago in
reliable.
class, I adore it. Like I really like that. That's what I love the most about him because he's just that he's not there to be liked. So we were having a conversation and you know Milay and stuff. And I don't know why I said at the very end, it's like, oh my God, at this point I have zero friends, you know. I That's why I can't come to class because you guys are my people. So he's very funny. He goes like, oh, so welcome to the Saifedian Pepper, Lonely, Close Hearts, or whatever, the Beatles. And you're the people. And then we were laughing so much because he goes, I couldn't give a shit. And I said, I know you don't give a shit because he's very accurate about certain things. And for instance, when he first wrote about it, I was like, come on. And he was like, you want me to show you? And I said, yeah, that's why I'm in class. So he started showing me what is it that you measure and why you measure. And then because he can say that the economy is growing, but he's not really looking at certain numbers that are the ones that you have to look. And so I'd like to study with somebody. And I told him, and I keep on telling him, I became logical having these classes because there's certain things that really need logic. It's not my feelings. Oh, I wish that he will win. That's a feeling. That's not true because there's a lot of
Yeah, I
people who are
think, I mean, I get it. I think there was a lot of hope on. There's a very, very bright Bitcoiner, what's his name? Mark Jeftovich. He's the guy that does the bomb thrower newsletter and he runs a DNS company. He's in Canada, but he's amazing. And I keep trying to get him on the podcast. He's like, actually, that reminds me, I need to harass him again because he was traveling last time I spoke to him. But he puts out some amazing stuff and he's really astute and he was so optimistic about Millet and then I sort of flagged this thing with Seifedine and he kind of said look we're kind of hoping that this is going to be and I think there was a lot of that for the Bitcoin community. It's like with El Salvador, people sort of ignored that what's his face
Kelly.
Bukele, yeah, that Bukele had kind of essentially had somebody assassinated in prison, the guy Alejandro, and like that completely got swept under the carpet. I think the only person that really called that out publicly was Alex Gladstein. And everybody else was still like, oh, we don't want to give up our dream of El Salvador as the haven of this, that, and the other. And I was just like, look, like he's done a lot of great things, but you've got to call bullshit when you see it, and you've got to call out like corrupt, bad behavior. And having people bumped off in prison because for whatever reason you don't agree with them. I'm sorry, but like I don't care what good things you've done. You're not a good person if that's what you do. So let's not like Emperor's Got No Clothes kind of just hero worship. Was Mick from Meta Mick from Guys always says slay your heroes. He's so right. you
Oh,
know?
and this is going back to first principles. It's like if you really understand the axiom that value is subjective, so that means that every decision that you make in your life is something that you have to know how you relate to it, whether it's something you need or it's something that you're going to value. And so when you have that relationship to that, you cannot just have the excuse of doing what other people do just because everybody else is doing it. You
hmm
you are accountable for that. And that's
Or by any
really
means necessary. It might be like, um, you want to achieve a certain objective and you're like, oh, you have to break a few eggs to make an omelette. It's like, no, actually, like murdering people is just wrong. Like it's just
Yeah.
wrong. And it
And so
doesn't matter what your reasons are for doing it, unless you had a direct attempt on your life in that moment, it's just wrong, you know?
that's why first principles for me are important. That's why I think when we're talking about why is it important to have a civilization is because at the very end, if we part from first principles, you can build something based on those. And that's really what common law and natural law are, because you kind of have certain givings that are like, we're not going to trespass each other's property. We're not going to trespass each other's lives. We're going to actually probably, and one of the things that Austrian economics kind of tells you is like arguments are important, dialogue is important, debates are
Hmm.
important. That's how we grow. This is how
There's
we.
nothing, by the way, I detest more than people say, oh no, we're not going to talk about religion or politics here. I'm like, why not? That's the whole point. Like, how do I grow as a person if I don't get to debate ideas with you? How do I challenge my own belief system if we all just sit here
Exactly.
in our echo chamber and everybody agrees with me? You
But
know?
that's a because that's why we have one part of society that doesn't want to deal with it because it's too triggering. And that's why I wanted to write a little bit about the word politics, because it's such a like bad word. Like, oh, like I know a lot of Bitcoins like, I don't want to do anything with politics. And I always laugh because I say, politics is part of civilization. Not that you have to be political and go and vote. Like, no, that's like the, I don't know, contemporary way of thinking about societies is like, you know, right and left and blue and red. This has nothing to do. It's more like going back to the origin of what Aristotle was saying, that, politics is this like behavior, collective behavior it has an aim, and the aim is to do good. You have the aim to be a good being, and a good being is basically, it's not even moral. It's like, don't kill, don't steal,
So
collaborate.
talk to me though about the corruption of politics, because this is one of the issues. I had a really interesting conversation, and actually you should talk to her as well. I don't know if you do you host your own podcasts or do you just go on other people's?
I go on other people's
Okay,
because
because I'll introduce you anyway to Joyce Brand. So she writes articles for the Free Cities Project. I don't know if you've met her. So
no, no.
she lives in Morazan in Nicaragua. Nicaragua? No, is it Nicaragua? Where is anyway, it's one of those free cities that they've established. And she's really interesting because I was asking her about this whole thing about where did the US experiment go wrong? And she said something that just like, I was like, whoa. She said the Constitution, when we put the Constitution together, and that was where all of this stuff got very centralized and what was supposed to be, a kind of
Which constitution? The first
the
one or the
US
second?
Constitution.
There are two. The
Oh, I don't
beginning,
know. I didn't delve into
yeah,
it that.
the second
um,
one is they changed it in 1871. That's the one that
Maybe
right
that's,
now.
yeah. I mean, she
Yeah.
did say that she had learnt this stuff from Tom Woods, interestingly, because I asked her, I said, no, I said to her, I've never heard anyone say that before. The Constitution is so lionized in the United States and it's considered to be this perfect document of blah de blah. But anyway, that was her take, but I've forgotten where I was going with that. Yeah,
Talking about
so talk to me, yes, about where politics went wrong then, because you're like, okay, so what you're saying is we need politics for society in order to function so that we can live peaceably with each other. So where and how does it go wrong? Because I think all of us look around at the Western world certainly now and just go, what a mess.
individual. So that's why I wrote like two things, because Aristotle says that politics is the master art. It's like everything together. It's a masterful thing. It's a skill. Art is a skill. It's a skill that you have in order to collaborate. But now we cannot think in the social way that the government is going to tell us and regulate us how the collective should be, because this is like no accountability. So that's why you go to Mises. And I think it's so important how he found it. Like 2000 years later, there's this guy that it's a genius as well. And he kind of goes, okay, you know what? We should really think about natural law, property rights, and kind of think of a way to make man responsible for their own actions. And so that's when responsibility comes in, and you say, look, and he says this thing, which I love it. It's like every decision that you make is economical. That thing stopped me, Krista, for months. I was going to buy something. I was like, okay. So, and this is what got me into low time preference, because it's like, are you an animal that has instincts and you don't think? And this is when I started thinking, oh my God, logic has a fucking purpose, for it has a purpose in my life. Because if I only do like reaction, or knee-jerk reactions, and that's how I lead my life. And then when something happens, I go, oh, it was not my fault. She told me to do it. This is what a lot of people do because they have no responsibility. So he basically said, you want to have a meaningful life, purposeful life. That's what praxeology really is like a purposeful behavior. And Aristotle talks about purposeful life in community, in civilization. And because he talks about the polis. Polis in Greek means the city. So Aristotle talking about the city.
Oh, polis, like Polis.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's where policemen come. I mean, they were not they were not called policemen, they were called watchmen. I did a whole piece on that.
Mm,
I made a commission for the police station. So sometimes when I make
mm,
stuff, I have to really go and investigate some other things because I say, where was the first policeman? Like who created
mm.
that? Yeah, and it was in Boston in the United States that they were called the watchmen. And there are people who were basically in smaller societies where you use common law. The common law is like families or small clans were living together, and there was always somebody who was like, the shaman, not the nurse, but the shaman, or the priest, or the person who helps the children. So we always have these small communities that are helping each other. And this is what the Austrians decided to create as an idea for civilization. The principle of economics, the book of Seyfedian, talks about how to create a society that is meaningful and it's going to work organically. But you also have to talk about food, because that's where a lot of things are wrong. You have to talk about pharma. That's like another thing. So you actually have to go back to the history of the 20th century and see where everything started to go wrong. And guess why everything went wrong? Because money has no value. That's it. So
Yeah.
it's back to fiat.
It's fascinating though, because for the Axis Tribe Book Club, I'm doing The Creature from Jekyll Island. So it's my second reading. I've read it obviously before and then decided to do it for the book club. So I have to prepare every chapter, and it's really hard, I think, for your average person to understand that there are people out there in the world for whom their sole obsession in life is accumulating like money and power and control over other people. Because for many people, they just want to get up and like do something meaningful, cook a nice meal, hang out with family and friends, do a bit of gardening, explore the planet, go see different cultures. And it's really hard to appreciate that there are people for whom their existence is something other than that. And it's all about just controlling and,
Great.
manipulating other people. And I don't know. I,
Just look at Rockefeller, a guy, like a
yeah,
guy.
like a miserable existence as well. Miserable
Yeah,
life.
he just like from all the people who were getting into the oil, he's the only one doesn't go west to pump oil, but he decides to create something else with it, plastics and pharma. And then he invents and he goes, maybe we should sell this thing. So maybe we should just like create some research where this is going to be better than alternative medicine. And there goes alternative medicine. That's it. Bye.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and then we're also going to fund, the Rockefeller Foundation is huge. I was
Mm,
once nominated because they give so much money. I mean, the people who they're still funding all the culture and the science by millions. And they buy these people because once you get funded, you get large grants, 50,000, 100, $200,000. So people
yeah.
who receive money are not going to say no because they want to get more money. So at the very end, it's another way of indoctrinating the herd that these are good things.
Yeah, I
That
mean, it's
farmers,
like it's very, what's that saying again? It's very hard to get a man to believe something if his job depends on him not, or understand something if his job depends on not understanding it, or something to that effect. Yeah. I mean, I think that's why I think all these doctors, I mean, people are just astounded that doctors were going and injecting people with something that they knew was harming them because they would have known at some point very early on. I mean, I'm not even talking about the panic, I'm talking about pre the panic. But, and people are kind of like, oh my gosh, but if you think about it, it's like that's their livelihood. And I
there's
think that there is a naivety where we assume that everybody gives a shit about everyone else. And actually, they really don't. Like, if you're an other, like you're not their family, you're not, in any way meaningful to them, you're not paying them,
and
you're kind of
but and
disposable.
there's no principles. You see, I
Hmm.
I I always find like this. I have this like cross that you have ethics and morality, and these are always ruled by the collective. you have
Hmm.
ethics, morality. But then for me, it's more important to have a principles, which for me is the base of everything, and then
Yeah.
integrity. Everybody has a price. So for me, my life is to be standing on principles and make sure that my integrity is sound, because that's going to determine my life. If I bend, that's my price. And then probably I will
Yeah.
have to through the morality
It,
work
it
I
was
did.
interesting actually. Yesterday I was at a conference and I was talking to somebody about like the kind of what had happened over the last 5 years. And I said, I said, yeah, funnily enough, actually, I'm interviewing. Do you know Erin Crawford, Death and Bitcoin?
No,
Oh, she's a really fascinating girl. She's a death doula. She's also a Bitcoiner. She works out a lot. She's a really fascinating character. But she's been going down a bit of a religious rabbit hole. So I reached out to the other day and I said, hey, I just saw that you were posting a lot of stuff about the Bible and Christianity. Are you a Christian now? Because she had said a few months ago that she was going to study the Bible. And she said, she said, I think I would describe myself as becoming. And I was like, actually, I really want to talk to her about this and understand it a bit more deeply. Um, but what got me interested, I grew up in a Christian household, and I would say I was an atheist for a very long time. I went to Burning Man in 2009, met a whole bunch of atheists. I was like, these people are so lovely. It's nothing like the sort of, hypocrites that I saw in the church. And I just read Richard Dawkins' The God Delusion, and it was like this immense relief where I was like, oh, okay, I'm not crazy. This stuff is all rubbish, and, it's just nonsense. And then during the whole panic period over the last 5 years, I mean, I was a total branch Covidian, by the way. I'm not trying to give myself a pass here. I was just like, bleaching, disinfecting, masking. I made masks at home. I was an early adopter way before anyone was buying them. I mean, I was completely sold on the propaganda. And then obviously, as the kind of mirage started to crumble when things stopped making sense, I was like, none of this makes sense. And it was
so
interesting because I looked out at the who got propagandized the most or the least, and obviously there were exceptions, but the kind of people that had faith, like religious people that believed in God, were generally, as a cohort, the ones that were least susceptible to this propaganda. And I thought about that a lot. And I came to the conclusion that if you I think you touched on this earlier, if you answer to a higher authority, you don't recognize temporal authority as being absolute. And so when that temporal authority conflicts with your religious beliefs
yeah,
and your faith, the faith will win out because that's the
always.
thing that kind of takes precedence. And I'm talking about people that take their religion sincerely and not just like cafeteria Christians. But
No,
it
of course.
really gave me pause for thought because I'd rejected religion so much. And then I suddenly thought, hang on a second, there's actually something in this, whatever
It's
it looks like. Yeah.
super powerful, and I felt it yesterday. I because I watched the whole thing. I
Did
didn't.
you?
I did because I saw him being shot almost by the minute. And I was like, I dropped everything, and it was like something pierced my heart. And I said, no, he's not going to die. And I'm kind of like, when you saw it, you go like, he's dead. And I was like, because also with the astrologer, I knew something, not necessarily this was going to happen, but we are at the end of times. We're at the edge, and there is going to be an awakening. And
Mm,
it's incredible what I witnessed yesterday, the awakening of like America as a Christian nation happening.
yes. Yes.
And I wrote a thing today, like a note, why I'm not a Christian, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. Because the thing is my astrology, I was born not to be a follower of any religion, although I've done the Buddhist, the Kabbalah, the Taoist, I've done all of it. And I consider myself very much in connection to the spiritual, to God, however you want to call it. So I do recognize that. Now I am very allergic, and I kind of push away any kind of collectivism that
Mm,
does me. So, but what I witnessed yesterday was more, it was different. It was
yeah.
people really speaking from the heart, that there's something above or inside of us, wherever you want to put God. Some people put it up there, some other people put it inside. It doesn't matter. It's your God. So you can do whatever you want with it, right? So, but what I noticed was like, oh, this is the second coming. And the second coming of Christ, according to Carl Jung, which I follow a lot, is not the Messiah coming. It's people waking up to their own individual strength, to their own individual courage. And if you look at Charlie Kirk, again, he was somebody full of courage, so graceful, so funny guy. So as you
Compassionate.
compassionate, but also so wise in so many levels and willing to go extra steps to just open up conversation. I think
Yeah.
that what happened yesterday, so like in the last few days, is almost like a miracle. Like even when I mean, if you believe it or not, like I do believe that Donald Trump got shot. I know that that day I also saw it. I don't know why I happened to see these things online. I thought if he dies, we're on to civil war, like this, like this. So I was like, okay, we just dodged a bullet. But this one, what is interesting is to see that people are so much connected to their own faith that there's going to be no rioting. There's going to be no space for that kind of hatred that we're receiving from the other side. Because the other side is just
Yeah,
so,
I mean, I think to be honest, that's also a bit of a psyop. It's like trying to get us to the other side, and I'm actually glad to see that people didn't take the bait for that. I think by and large, like they did not take the bait, and I thought that was really wonderful to see. But it is interesting because I don't know. I mean, gosh, when I went down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, I really started thinking about this stuff, and I remember thinking I've said this to a lot of people, but I'll just repeat it again because I was thinking of if you think about our reality as a matrix. Um, it's almost like, there's the code and it's corrupted, and it's almost like Bitcoin gets injected and it's like the antivirus. And I sort of say this to people, there's something very strange about Bitcoin because when people interact with it, they start to change. Like it does something to them. And I remember thinking, I started actually writing an article back in, I think it was like early 2022, about whether like Bitcoin was the second coming. And in researching it, because I was sort of thinking, I wonder if anyone else has had these thoughts, I found this article by John Vallis called Is Bitcoin the Man? And it was way better than anything I could have written. So I abandoned my article and read his and was like, oh my God, I'm not crazy. I'm not the only one that thinks this.
well,
Um,
that's what it's a state of consciousness, which at the very end, consciousness and the second coming is all a state of awareness that we
yeah,
are capable to transform because Bitcoin transforms you at all levels. That I know. I know.
yeah,
I'm guilty because I know. Now the interesting thing is this: like yesterday, I was watching this thing, and I say, if this is a psyop, my God, the design of this matrix is amazing.
yeah, it's a very effective sci-fi. I mean, I'll be honest,
And
I'm very suspicious about the whole
yeah,
incident, but the impact of it is interesting because I'm like, we are either all just totally being psyoped and very susceptible. But one
we're
thing that's
thinking,
interesting about it, though, is I think what it's to your earlier point is it's breaking down this. I think what most of us objected to who grew up in a religious framework was the institution and
yeah,
the humans that were intermediating that relationship with God from that institution. Whereas I think actually now maybe what we're discovering more is a direct relationship with God at an individual level, as you said, like that transformation.
this is what the Constitution is saying. So because there is like, we have Aristotle, then we have Cicero, but then we have this other guy that is Aquinas, that he was a priest. He was somebody who was like in the church, and he basically is the first guy who's saying, it is God. So he was a philosopher, and he was trying to say, let's put philosophy and religion together, not the religion that we have right now. So that's why, for instance, people who are very in touch with the Constitution and with these first principles, they think and they talk about God, not the God that you and me went to church,
Hmm.
fearing God. No, there was no fear yesterday in the talk about God. It was almost like a celebration. I mean, we were speaking today and next, like, could they have fireworks, whatever. Everybody was celebrating his life because I have my father dying, my mother dying. Like I have dealt with a lot of death in my life, but I'm never crying. I'm always celebrating it. And what I did in the aftermath of his assassination is like I took 2 days of mourning because I was so impacted. I'm like, let's hope that this is not again the beginning of the end because God only knows what's going to happen. And I remember in meditation asking his soul, like, look, you have created a very impact in my life, not just because I just met you. It's like I've been following you for a while. So what can I do in order to give some sort of validation to your life? So young, I mean, like it was cut short. And because my father died also a little bit older, but I know what it has. It is to live without somebody that dies so young. And so I remember I said, I asked, when I wake up, please tell me, let me know what is my purpose. And the next day, meditation, I received something that says something like, I have to help educate the indoctrinated and help people inspire to be connected to their own selves. Because this is the job that I'm doing somehow as an artist. And so I asked, is this the right thing? He goes, yes, because like this, my word, my life, my courage is going to be forever. And that's what I saw. Yeah, that's why I wanted to attend, because I thought maybe I'm making this thing up. Maybe he's speaking to me. No, he's speaking to everybody. He's this like image, like, I don't want to call him a martyr because I don't go to that extent, but he's this like symbology, it's this representation of a life cut short in the neck, no more voice, First Amendment, and violence. For instance, this is an attempt to natural law, because people attempted to his life. Because when we talk about censorship, and this is interesting because we have the aftermath of everybody going cuckoo with this guy, Jimmy Kimmel. And I wrote something about that too, because people are like, they don't know the difference. Like, Jimmy Kimmel was not censored. Censorship is when the government, a legal entity, puts you in jail. That's censorship. There was no such a thing. Now, because it was a private company that say goodbye, that's very different. People you can get kicked out of a company if you're working for them, if you're not doing the right thing or you're saying the wrong thing. That's not censorship. So I think it's so important to understand the meaning of words, the meaning of words, to understand why we're having this discourse without knowing what it means. I think that's a problem. That's a problem.
I think it's willful misuse of language, of just manipulating it and changing it to mean something that it doesn't, because it's kind of like, silence is violence, and like all these kind of phrases of just, it's just kind of distorting. Like, I mean, it's very Orwellian. It's very like, we'll distort language and call it something so it sounds like, you
But
know.
for instance, one thing that I can be proud of, like I started being more like in not Facebook, because I don't use it, but Instagram. I started to put posts, and then I usually respond to certain comments, and I get people at me. Da, 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 da. And so that's some days that I have time. I'll come, and especially for instance with all the art magazines, when they talk about the art market being like that, oh my God, I'm just telling every artist they should read this, they should do, but I'm doing it in a way that is kind of clever, because I pick up something of the argument, and I go, oh, here we go again, talking about the market without even knowing what money is. Guys, we should read this. Da, da, da. And sometimes I have the people that come and they basically look at my profile and they see Bitcoin, so they come and start insulting me, you crypto bullshit, whatever. And so I always go, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, if you only have insults, I'm not going to talk. But if you want to have a dialogue, I have 3 more hours. Be my guest. And I don't say that every argument has been good, because I basically, if the person keeps on insulting, I just do not respond. I have been able to have the most amazing dialogues with people that I don't know, and they end up, by the third thing, they sending me like in Telegram and like a note, and then I give them I have all these books downloaded in a list so people can actually get them. You want to read the picture of it? Here is the link. You want to read this other? Here's the link. You want to see I have a list of all the podcasts. I have everything. You want to educate yourself? Here's the thing. So I like to, and again, seeing Charlie doing this with a smile, it was like, I can do this. He's showing me that I have to I have to educate myself in the subject. So then when I have a conversation, I know how to talk. But
I
it's
was
not
listening. I was listening to somebody talk about him the other day. Maybe it was Tucker Carlson. It was Tucker Carlson actually, because I think it was at the event yesterday.
Okay.
And it was quite funny because he was saying, "Yeah, I've got like a little, what did he call it? Like a little angry corner of my heart where I get angry at people." And he said, Charlie would say, "Look, that's a person in pain who, and it's so true. I mean, when you say people come at you, it's often maybe they've lost money or they're poor and they're angry or they feel like they've missed the boat and they're stressed and actually, you realize that, like, all of these bad behaviors that we sometimes take personally, or things when people do stuff that, it almost
Yeah,
feels like they're going to hurt us, is
you.
because they're in pain.
They're in pain. So I learned this a long time ago. Like, oh, it's like when people say things about you or to you, they have nothing to do with you, but how they relate to you in that specific. So when people come and insult, how many people I lost? I mean, for me, it's a gain. I don't have all these friends anymore. So I know right now that I like, again, in the Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Club Band because I have very no problem. I'm like, less people to call. Like, I don't have to go
Oh, have you really been like ostracized that much?
100% from all the art
Really?
world. Like, my life in New York is gone. Everybody is,
Wow.
and especially when I started talking about politics, I have never spoken about politics.
Funny face.
I didn't care. I
Oh.
never voted in my life. I couldn't give 5 cents for that. I I already said this in another podcast. I used to lie about that I was voting. Like voting day, people, are you gonna vote? Like, did you vote it? Didn't care. Did not care. When even the first time of Donald Trump, people were crying. I was like, big deal. And there were people really crying about it the next day. And they said, are you coming to the protest? And I'm like, I don't do protests. Like, I don't. Like, I was so like disconnected from anything was political. Nothing. I was like, no, just not gonna walk. I hate those things. Like, I'm not gonna dress up and go like blah blah blah. I would never do that. I mean, not my personality. But then when I saw what was happening in this country during 2020, and I was already living here in Miami, and I was saying, oh, there's something really wrong about this country right now. And then he said he's gonna run again. I'm like, I actually spend a lot of time listening to him, to Donald Trump, old interviews, and see what's the deal, why people hate him. And I was like, he makes all the sense in the world. He's been saying the same thing forever. Why
Yeah,
people hate.
that is true. Actually, he has been very consistent. Actually, it's quite amazing when you see the old videos of him. It's very true.
He's
Yeah.
funny, and I mean, he's
So did you vote
funny.
for him or did you just not bother?
Yeah, I voted for the first time in my life.
Oh,
I went
really?
and I said, voted for Trump, and people were like, "What?" I never voted. I never see anything, so I just went online, and I'm like, people were like, "You're crazy," because they never saw me doing anything political, and all of a sudden I go and vote for the person that they hate. Oh,
Right.
immediate. And I was talking about Milei, and I was like, so people were like, are you okay? And I started talking about Austrian economics. So I had all my friends, artists, are socialists. How can you be so selfish? Austrian economics is horrible. It's poison. And I was like, oh my God. So I
Or at
don't know
least
if
they
I,
knew what it was. I'll give them that. I mean, most
but
of the time it's like when you talk to people about economics, if you say Austrian economics, they just look at you like you're bonkers.
completely. But I was enjoying, maybe I like the provocation. So I was like, oh, I like this. People are alive. All of a sudden I'm saying, Mrs. Rothbard, and people go, "Ah." So I thought, this could be interesting. And then I thought, I thought maybe I should really read more and understand why it makes sense. And the more I was in class and actually reading the Principle of Economics of Saifuddin is my favorite book. I mean, all of these books are great, but this one is a favorite because actually it's a masterpiece. The way he puts it together, it's like
Hmm.
if you want to live and go to another planet and you need one book, just take that book. You can start
High
civilization
praise.
from.
Mm.
It's amazing, this book. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
he's really incredible. He's such an amazing mind. I think actually I was just thinking about when you were saying about how people had such an emotive reaction to you, and I kept thinking about that phrase that like the truth doesn't mind being questioned. And I think part of the problem with some of these ideologies, or I'll give an example like Brexit, for example. So obviously I'm British, and I was living in the UK at the time when not when Brexit happened, but when the discussions were happening in the lead up. And I just looked at, what made most sense to me. And I thought, well, I've lived in Europe. Like I grew up in Italy. I'm, half Finnish. I've seen what Europe looks like, and I've seen the kind of mission creep that is the European Union. And I have actually one memory that really sticks with me is I did some German studies when I was at school, and my German teacher had worked for the European Union. And
Yeah.
I remember her saying to us, "Oh, you should go and work for the European Union because it's just a gravy train. You can earn loads of money doing almost nothing." And she was telling us this like it was some great advice that she was imparting to us. And I mean, I was probably like 15 years old at the time, but I remember just thinking, are you fucking kidding me? Like, really? Like, that's just so not work and produce something of value that you get
No.
paid for, but you just go on this gravy train. And I'll be honest, I think I became a Brexiteer then long before it was even a concept. So then over like a period of time, there was a lot of mission creep. And when Brexit discussions were happening, I just remember colleagues being outraged that I said I was voting to exit the European Union. They were like, "Oh, how can you?" And I just said to them, "Well, you know, if we were not part of the European Union, would you want to join?" And they 100% of them said no. And I'm like, okay, so the difference between me and you is that I am willing to leave a bad marriage and you're not. You know, that is basically the fundamental difference. It's not about like what the European Union, we're not disagreeing on whether the European Union is a good thing or not. I mean, I heard some bullshit arguments as well. One German guy I worked with said, "Oh, well, the only reason I was able to come and work in the UK was because of free movement. So, you know, that's outrageous that the British are now going to vote to stop us coming here and working." And like, why do you have
And
a right to come here and work? Like, it's a privilege that's extended to you.
yeah, and I think that it was created in a way because it's at the same time that they start opening the borders
Oh,
with the
yeah. 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 Oh, it's a
so
controlled demolition for sure.
100%. And then it's like making people like, okay, we're gonna close the borders for the Europeans, but we're gonna open to the other people with the gangs.
Well, I think the idea was that the borders would just have been open and then they open the borders on the outside and now the entire place is flooded. And the UK voting to say, sorry, but we're not going to have anything to do with this was a
Yeah.
massive issue because it kind of broke the whole project. And it also showed other countries of what was possible. That coupled with Trump's election, I think the same year, I mean, I think the world just lost its mind. You know, the kind of globalist dream sort of started falling apart as people started saying, actually, I'm not really down with this and I don't like it. I'm out, you know, do what you like. But I think that was really when I think people the kind of parasitic class really started to struggle. Um,
There was, yeah, and I was married to a Spaniard, and his family was there. He was an entrepreneur, so he doesn't count. But everybody that he always talk about were people who had these jobs that they're secure forever, and they were so happy about it. And I was like, don't they want to do anything else? Why should they? They have this like tenure forever.
what was
And
that? Who was that quote from again? Is it Benjamin Franklin? Those that trade liberty for safety deserve neither. Yeah,
yes, and if you
yeah.
do in terms of trauma, it's the same thing. It's like people prefer to be staying in traumatic situations, uh,
Mm.
be disconnected to your needs because they want security over their own authenticity. So it works that way. There was a movie, I think it was Italian movie. I don't even know the name of it. I saw it years ago, and it was very funny because it was like old time. I think it's Italy post-war, no, maybe
Oh,
70s or. And then there's some children in Sicily, probably was Sicily, and the teacher is asking, but like these children, very, very young, 4 or 5 years old, when they start asking, what do you want to do when you grow up? And most of them say, I want to be a policeman or I want to be a doctor. So one of them raises a hand and I said, I want to have the posto fisso, which is like that tenure in whatever in the post office or in the government where I'm just gonna be there forever and I don't need to work. And it was the whole movie was about like there's no incentive for anybody other than just like become a parasite in the government. That's what they want. They don't want to work. And I was talking the other day to some Italians because and some Europeans saying I lived in Europe for 8 years and I have been traveling there a lot. So what I've noticed, especially like Italy, probably Spain as well, I don't know, Portugal, but the youth has given up a long time ago. And
mm.
they people who speak in this way is like, I cannot permit myself to do that. They're 20 years old, and instead of saying, I'm gonna do whatever I want, which is what I was saying, I'll conquer the world. Like people like, I'm like, watch me, because I had all this ambition. But these kids, you say, why don't you do this? They say, I cannot permit this. I cannot, there's no space for me. And
Mm.
they already gave up. So Europe already gave up. And that's why I think CBDCs and all these things are just going to unfold. People do not understand. They're not even willing to fight it because it's like,
Yeah.
it's very sad. It's very,
As
very
they
sad.
say, good times make weak men, etc. Yeah.
So we'll see. Hopefully, I mean, I'm always an optimist. So hopefully some crazy people, they just start a revolution, says, no, we're not going
Oh,
to do that.
I think we are in like, I know everyone uses that term like spiritual war, but we wrestle not with flesh and blood. I do think that we are in this kind of, maybe I would define it in more secular terms for people that are more comfortable with that, as saying we're in an energetic war. Um,
100%. And we are.
yeah,
And the interesting thing right now is like, again, going back to Mises, is like, so instead of trying to solve the problem globally, you start at the base, which is you.
yeah,
So you start with yourself. What can I do? Or maybe I don't have the information. What about education? Oh, but I don't have money. I mean, so many resources online for free. It's so amazing. So it's just, I go to bed many times because I study a lot, and I go always happy, going like, oh my God, today was great. I read this book and I read this thing about. So I'm always happy to learn stuff. I don't know.
yeah,
That's the happiest. Maybe some people go like, oh, that's boring. Okay, then be productive, do something, because we're here to do something of good. Again, Aristotle, do something of good. It's this is human nature. We're here to do something of good for ourselves, good for our families, good for our community. And that's why I think, Bitcoin, when you actually tap into it and you say, oh, it cannot be corrupted. So it already has that good in itself. It is based on
yeah.
that.
Truth.
Good
It's based on truth. Yeah.
truth, and math is truth. So I think that that's why it resonates. Now, there are all kinds of Bitcoiners out there. I mean, I laugh at the Bitcoiners that are living the fiat life. Those are the most funny. But I say, don't judge. It's just like, if they want to do what they want to do, and now we have wars in Bitcoin because you're running this or you're not running. That's human nature. But
Are
at the
you
very,
talking about the knots versus the
I
Oh
get,
God. Do you know
I'm like,
it's not even a technical discussion for me for that thing. What I really just got sick to the back teeth of was just like this ridiculous virtue signaling. I was like, just shut the fuck up. Like seriously, run the software that you want, and yes, I agree that there should be open debate, but this thing has just turned into this ridiculous beast where people are like virtue signaling about which one they're using. And I'm like, I don't care. But just watching this spectacle, I'm like, come on, guys, you're better than this. Just stop. If
you
you
know
want
what?
to debate the issues or the facts or the technology, that's fine. Debate it in good faith. But when people are like, "Yeah, I'm running knots," I'm like, fuck off. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
the good thing, I mean, my little miner slash node burned. Thank God it didn't burn my house, but the electrical thing
What you mean?
burned.
So you weren't put in the position of having to decide which way you should be virtue signaling?
Because it was in the moment, like one day it stopped working and I was very busy finishing stuff, and I just put it aside, and I'm going to deal with it. And like 2 weeks ago, I'm like, okay, now we're going to deal with this. Oh my God, this thing almost burned, and there's no way.
But
And I'm not,
this is good because now when people ask you, you can just say that, are you running knots or core? You can just say, oh, actually, like my whole thing's down, it's burned.
yeah, no, it is. I actually wanted to throw it away, but I put it there because I'm going to keep it as like a sculpture of like, I did have a miner, but this thing, I probably was not in a very, because Miami is very hot. And so I don't want to run the AC the whole time. So I put it in a place that probably was not very well ventilated. And maybe the fan broke. And then the wires, they kind of like burned. Thank God my house didn't burn. But I did see one day that it was down, and I
But
said, I'll deal
see,
with
now what you're telling me is you're not running a node, so that makes you like a really bad person if you're not
well,
running a node. Because
no,
now
that's
are you even a Bitcoiner?
yeah, I know. But my thing is like, I'm going to probably get another node in the future,
I
but
bet you
then
had seed oils today, didn't you?
I am a carnivore. A carnivore. No, those things are interesting. The thing is, this is like, and this is interesting because we tend as humans to be judgmental. So I live my life the best way that I lead it, but I'm not. a follower of any like church, and
Mm.
I'm not. So the church of Bitcoin is like this or that. And it's just like, guys, come on. Like, you can't be just saying that this is the leader and this is the truth. Let people do whatever they want. And then we, with our
Yeah.
actions, to
And I,
uh,
th
to
I think if you're having an intelligent debate about something and trying to actually understand the issues, that's perfectly fine. And I'm really interested to talk to people and understand what the differences are between core and knots and what the core of the argument is. But what I'm not going to do is go on X and like virtue signal about which one I'm using and tell everybody about how great I am because I'm doing whatever,
this
whichever side of the fence.
this
Um,
morning was fighting with the Stefan Lever, and I'm like, are you already at that level of the conversation where you're like starting, not insulting, but you're like 3 seconds away from insult? Is like, come on, guys. Like I've met you both, like, you're intelligent beings. But
yeah.
this is really like a portrait of this duality is happening everywhere at all levels.
Mm,
And so my question always is like, which part of myself is divided? Because that's the only thing that I need to integrate, my own division,
mm.
the places where I don't make sense. That's where I want to go back to me and go like, I can't, like, if something is triggering me, you stop, you go, I don't like what this is making me feel.
Monica, just like, I mean, I guess to wrap this up, I'd really love to ask you because you spend so much time thinking about this stuff deeply and studying about it. And what would you say to people for practical steps of how to approach this? Because there's different, sorry, it's the dog. But there's ways of approaching this where it's kind of like, okay, I'm come to Jesus, I'm going to go to church, I'm going to follow the Ten Commandments, and that's a very valid approach in my opinion, and has whatever. But like if somebody's kind of like, okay, I do want to do some self-reflection, I do want to work, I do want to understand these cycles, from an astrological perspective, and kind of, can you shut up for a second? And try I can hear that, I'm so sorry. And try
No, I
and
get
kind of, move in harmony with them. Um, what like describe like I guess a good day of like how you would approach these things. What steps would you take? So I get up in the morning. Is it meditation that really does it for you, where you listen to what's coming in? Do you kind of study cycles? What kind of practical things do you do that help you process all of these things and progress as a human?
Well, I've been meditating for 30 years, so it is part of my life in a way, but I try to keep it like fun. So it doesn't feel like meditation, like this thing that is not conscious anymore. So I do, it's pretty much done at very early morning because I wake up really early. And then I started doing these things like 9 months ago, which I'm addicted to. It is called hypopressives, that is like you breathe. Oh my God, you love it because this is good for the nervous system. It will help you regulate the polyvagal nerve. And so basically you just breathe, you breathe in, you breathe out, and when you expel everything, at one point, I mean, I do them standing up or I do them lying down. I mean, you can Google hypopressives. You basically take your diagram and you put it all inside of the ribs. And this, it's like if you do, I don't know, 5, 6, 10 of them, you start yawning and you start kind of tearing up. And so you know that you just open all your nervous system. So when you don't do that, I also do something called humming. I do that every day. So I hum. I can send you the tapes because I'm
Mm,
studying vibrations. Like I'm really
yeah.
obsessed. I'm writing my second book that is called The Arts of Synthesis and the Architecture of Value, but I'm putting stuff about dimension. I mean, it's going to be a fun book because I talk from about everything from politics to like energy, because for me everything is connected. So I
100%. Yeah.
so so the interesting thing is I'm doing this humming and it really helps regulate my being. And I bought like last year this platform that is vibrating. So it's lovely. I do myself 20 minutes a day. You
Where'd you
just
get
go like
that from?
Amazon.
Oh,
And so I do something that is really funny. It's like I hum at the same time that I'm vibrating. So my voice goes, "Ah." So I laugh. And because the best medicine is laughter, the best medicine is to, and I live by myself. And so I'm like, I'm always having fun. I'm like 5 years old doing this stuff. And I'm always talking to myself. It's like, so what are we going to do next? It's like, have you thought about it? Let's do that. And so I'm really crazy by myself, but I love it because it's almost like there's a cheering up Monica, there's always, let's do this, you can do this. And so it's putting me in a place of I don't know, like action. One thing that I have to tell people one thing. If you want to evolve, the most important thing in evolution is movement.
Mm.
Do not stagnate. If you don't know, educate yourself. If you are in a place where you think, when you think and you believe that there's no way out, start moving your perception, move your way of thinking. If you don't know, ask questions. So movement is what makes evolution happen. And this is
Mm.
what we're saying now. And so, and even metaphorically, it's like you move yourself from the ideas that you think that there are, and then you start moving in another place and you go, oh my God, I thought Millet was this, or I thought Donald Trump
This
was
is
that,
what you were saying about the somatic stuff. So basically uniting kind of your mind and your body so that they're actually cooperating, right? That makes
Yeah,
sense.
body. So let's say that there's a natural order, and that's the grammar. So you learn how to read, write, how to speak, how to function. But then the embodiment, it's what really the logos is like your life. It's the semantics of this drama. You
Hmm.
are the result of it. So, but it's not. It cannot say in the books. You have to actually bring it down and live it. You have to become that embodiment of those ideals or that religion or whatever you want to aspire, because at the very end, you're aspiring to be a better good of something.
Hmm.
Unless you are want to be aspiring to kill somebody. I mean, you can be aspirations of all kinds. So, but you're going to have to aim, because one of the things that Aristotle says is aim, is the telos, is the aim of things that you have to
Hmm.
really focus. And with that, you have to put the intention. So intention is internal, aim is outside. And but then if you don't praxis, if you don't practice, nothing happens.
Hmm.
You have to probably sit down. This is my thing that I tell a lot of people. I actually teach. I started opening some slots right now to do studio. Like I teach people in 12 hours how to learn about Bitcoin. I have a like a one-on-one, and now I open not long ago like one-on-one on evolution astrology, also like 6 sessions.
Oh.
And I'll teach you how to like know your chart, but mostly understand how to like you are feeling it. So because this is language, it's just grammar. I just teach you some archetypes. So yeah, I would say that in order to connect to yourself, it's important to understand that there's always other things outside of yourself that are projected onto people, things, and situations. And if you are able to see yourself outside of yourself, like a third person, you probably can integrate what's happening from another perspective.
Hmm.
And then you can grow out of that ideas, because that's when you grow, when you realize, oh, my bad, I thought that was like that. Maybe I should have thought differently. And that's what makes people grow. That's what humility is about. I learned to be humble later in my life when I started recognizing that I didn't know everything, because I used to pretend that I was a know it all, but I didn't. And now it's like, I don't know much about this, but I'm gonna keep on inquiring. So that inquiry is very important. You inquire, and when you inquire, you find your truth.
I don't know if this is an Aurelius quote, but do you know who Jeff Everly is? He's a veteran. He's Canadian, but he most famously recently went for a walk in a forest, and it was illegal in the province that he's living in because hashtag climate change or whatever. But he gave a speech, and he said a great quote from it, and I put it up on LinkedIn. He said, "Let your only enemies be ego and comfort."
Mm, beautiful,
Right?
beautiful. Yeah, but ego for me is like a word that has become so out of context, because you cannot be perceiving your life without an ego, because ego is actually the self that is perceiving the
Hmm.
reality. Hence, so what that ego that he's talking about is more like the persona that you create and you think you are, like the
Yeah.
matrix. Like
That you
so
were very
that,
attached to. It's me.
yeah. Well, you are a bunch of things, but when you see yourself from the outside, or yeah, when you see yourself from the outside and you question yourself, then you start seeing that how humble your life is, because you don't know it all, because you make mistakes, because you're curious, because you want to go and participate in life. And I think that that's what makes things so beautiful. And I want to live in a civilization that I am an optimist, and I want to live in a place where people respect each other, where money is not going to be this like, thing that is decaying and it's corrupted and it's making people not have principles. You see, when you have money that is
I
not
think
has
I
no
think
value,
what it's doing is it's preventing us from creating and evolving. That's really what's happening. It's like we're being dragged down by this kind of corruption.
like fiat money, it's one of the worst things that ever happened to humanity because it's
Yeah.
allowed people to behave in a way that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There's no principles, and that's why it's going back to what going back to what is natural. And also, if you want to connect that natural law to something that is divine, even better, because that's going to give you direction. You see, the word contemplation, it was always like this direction to go up, and that's why all churches have the cross on top, because you are looking up. Because sometimes you think that God is outside. I mean, me personally, I don't think that it's a guy with a beard and it's outside of myself. I think it's something more inside of myself that is part of my own spirit, that is connected to the divine force that created everything, the creator. So
Mm,
uh, my soul is
interesting.
connected to spirit. We're all like, the soul is like this little thing that fell, and it's like, you're on your own. Oh, fuck. Okay, I'll try.
I
And then
actually
you
I
go,
actually have a book for you that you should read. It's called The New Science of Heaven. Um,
beautiful.
yeah, you'll love it actually. It's hold on, I'm trying to remember who the author is. New Science of Heaven. It is Robert Temple.
Okay.
Very good name. You should read
Yes.
that. It's all about like it's a very scientific book, like very kind of classical science, kind of plasma and blah
Okay.
blah. But it basically sort of unites all of the belief systems really of faiths, but under a
Mm.
scientific thesis that doesn't actually disprove any of them. So it's not, it doesn't sort of say that, these faiths are wrong, blah, blah, blah. It's actually very united. It's a fascinating book. I actually have to read it again. I've read it maybe 4 or 5 months ago and I have to read it all over again. It was amazing.
I've
Um,
been reading lately is Federico Pagin. He wrote this beautiful book called Irreducible. He's the guy who created the microprocessor. He's in his 80s. He's an Italian,
oh,
lives in Silicon Valley. And he had like a moment of like in the 80s, early 90s, he had a moment of like, awakening, however you want to call it, because he saw some light and then he realized that he was more than his body. And he decided that he had made enough money and enough. He had done check all the boxes. And then he said, I'm going to dedicate the rest of my life to understand what consciousness is. So he
mm,
beautiful books called Irreducible. So he talks about consciousness being this thing that you can call God, but it's the basis of everything. And we build everything from that. We
yeah,
build. So if your consciousness want to relate to Judaism or to Islam or whatever, I mean, I'm not pro-religion or against it. I think that I have to permit other people to really worship whatever they want. If I want to be free and I want people to respect me, I have to respect that too. Now, if people come and they start killing each other in front of my eyes, and I have something to defend myself, I'll do it. But I think that it's very important that we understand that we as human beings, we have so many different ways to connect to the divine. And
mm,
that's okay. So that's why I'm like not religious and like my religion is better
yeah.
than I
No,
don't
that
care.
makes sense.
I
We've
don't
been on for
divide my
nearly 2 hours, Monica. We should wrap up.
okay, great. I can go
But maybe
forever,
we could
but
do this in person one day. We should do that. I'll come to Miami. We can have a
are you going to El Salvador? No.
El Salvador. Well, now that I've trashed Bukele, I probably can't, can I? No, I'm not going to El Salvador anytime soon. I kind of was really interested to go there for a hot second, and now I'm just like, I don't know.
No,
I don't really feel like they fulfilled their promise to the
no.
degree that they could have done. And mm,
I love conferences to speak and meet people. That's what I do. So
yeah. Yeah, I know that lots of people hate it, but I probably will go to the Bitcoin conference for in Las Vegas next year because it's just convenient for me. It's easy to get there. As a like, actually I know most people hate Vegas, but I love it. I think it's just like a really
no, I
great
went
place.
and I went and I said, I proved to myself, it's like, it's not Vegas. The problem is how you tune into your own frequency. If
Mm,
you're right attunement, everything is great. But if you're like, well, that's what's going to happen in your life. So yeah, I went and I had a lot of fun. So maybe I see you next year. Anyway, thank you so much.
Buenas
Have a good
tardes. Muchas gracias.
bye.
And send me the
Thank
links, by the way, for the vibrating mat. I'll put that on the show notes. And then there was something else you mentioned. A
Jesus, I
list
don't know.
of like, oh, the type, the breathing, that breathing thing that you do.
I'll do the breathing, yeah, and stuff like that, and maybe some links about if people want to learn about this stuff. If you go, they go to Tom Wood's.
Definitely, yeah. And I'll add your article. But yes, yes. I mean, I'm familiar with those courses, but actually, yeah, the links would be great. And then people
Yeah.
can put those in. I might actually do an email intro between you and Joyce. I feel like you'd have a lot to talk about, especially as you're down this rabbit hole. She's very well read on this subject and really interesting lady, actually, like really fascinating. And the other person actually that you should connect with is Deanna Heikkinen. She's also, so she lives in El Salvador actually, and she is a former university professor, but she has a ridiculous number of degrees and qualifications. And she left the American education system because she was like, I can't do this, it's just wrong. And she's written a whole bunch of books, but she is so knowledgeable about history. I could
Oh,
sit
wow.
on I did a podcast with her recently, and I was literally like, I could have sat there for 4 hours and talked to her. I mean, and she's a great debunker because you're like, what about this? And she's like, well, if I can't touch it, Felix, she used to be an archaeologist as well. So she's really interesting. This is the only reason, by the way, I do the podcast, so I can have like long conversations with people that are interesting. I'm like,
Yeah, of course. I, by any means, I'm an expert. I like to go down the rabbit holes and have an experience. So when I come, I speak from whatever I smell, touch, or sense, but I'm not like a specialist on anything. But I love reading. That's
learning.
all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it. Enjoy the sunshine in Miami. I guess as everybody else is rolling into winter, you're just got your permanent summer. So, and
Yeah.
hopefully I will see you next year then, but maybe sooner.
Yes. Yes. So I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.